China Ride.
Ooh.
Okay.
Rivets, yeah, I showed it to
Human Services and the Ad Council.
In 1977, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. The odds of that same boy winning the US Open twice, 1 in 1.2 billion. The odds of him having a child diagnosed with autism? 1.
You're listening to Cheyenne's News and Talk Station, AM 650, KGAB, Orchard Valley, Cheyenne, a town square media station.
And the Ad Council.
NASCAR champion Bobby Lavani here with my brother Terry and my nephew Justin. You know, every sport has its essential safety gear.
For racing, we wear helmets, fire retardant suits, and Nomex gloves.
For fishing, waterfowl hunting, and boating, we wear life jackets.
After an intense race, there's nothing more relaxing than bass fishing.
Or a little duck hunting on the lake.
But we're the first ones to tell you, on the track or on the water, accidents happen fast.
In a
I expected it to be a lot easier.
I thought it was going to be a piece of cake. I didn't know what step to take next.
I was transitioning from the military.
I was a vehicle gunner.
An avionics specialist.
I was an MP, military police.
My friends thought I could do anything.
I missed my unit, my family.
Playing with my daughter, I felt like a stranger.
I was overwhelmed.
I couldn't sleep.
I just wanted to be by myself.
I didn't have a clear sense of what to do next.
I was too proud. And then I thought, if I'm going through this, other veterans have gone through it too, right?
I started to open up.
And it made a huge difference.
So I reached out, and I saw that I wasn't alone.
Because before I was able to take on my next mission, I had to take on just taking care of myself.
To find purpose.
Go to maketheconnection.net to learn how other veterans have overcome the challenges of transitioning out of the military.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
Inside my car, I got pictures, got candy, I'm a lovable man, and I can take you to the nearest star. I'm your vehicle, baby. I'll take you anywhere you wanna go. I'm your vehicle, woman. By now I'm sure you know that I love you, I need you, I want you, got to have you shine. Great God in heaven, you know I love.
Nick the
Your Deal with the Forecast is brought to you by Bob Ruart Motors, an honest, upfront deal. All roads lead to BobRuartMotors.com. Your Saturday forecast will feature mostly sunny skies, temps cool and comfortable into the upper 70s and low 80s. Northerly winds will be breezy at 15 to 25.
Cheyenne
For tonight,
winds.
clear skies, lows in the low to mid 50s. Your Sunday outlook, keeping it sunny with highs in the lower to mid 80s. Back in the upper 80s, low 90s, sunny and dry for Monday. Lows in the low to mid 50s. I'm day weather meteorologist Don Watson.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
All right, the computer has completely lost its mind. I am now taking it over. We are done with it. It's going to get to an end of Spot Block, and We could continue with CarGab. I have no clue what the system is doing at this point.
I don't know, but
We were going pretty smoothly there for a while.
It was working great, and I don't mind hearing that Chicago bass. It's good stuff.
It's a good song.
But hey, sounds like we got some nice weather for the weekend. That's
Yeah,
good news.
that's kind
Click
of
and clack here.
It was kind of fun to oversteer. No, it's going to be a northerly wind, really. Cheyenne wind, shark.
Yeah, 10 to 15 mile an hour. Well, that's not bad.
Not a
That's
wind,
just
that is a breeze. That is like a breath of fresh
so.
air.
Let's go fly a kite. That's what everybody should do. Go fly a kite today. That'll be fun.
I like flying kites.
Do you?
Yes.
I do too.
They're always very peaceful things.
It's great to fly kites here in Wyoming because you really don't have to run. You just get to sort of flip.
Well, no, I mean, you just chuck it in the air and a fine wind does it.
Yeah, give her a little
I will
slack
never
and away
forget,
she
though,
goes.
years and years ago, because Gabby was little and she isn't, well, Gabby was young. She's still little.
Hi, Gabby.
Sorry, Gabby. Gabby's at Jubilee Day. She's not listening to her father.
Is that going on?
Yes, Jubilee Days, I believe, is going on at the moment. Anyway, so I decide that my 5-year-old daughter needs a kite.
Yes.
Which basically means that Dad needed a kite and the 5-year-old daughter was the excuse.
Right.
She might have been 4. I think this was pre-PJ. Anyway, so I go out with said kite out to the football park out north, and a very strange phenomenon happened at that moment in Cheyenne.
It stopped.
No wind.
Yeah.
None.
Right.
0 wind.
Exactly.
And it's like, really? That wind has not stopped blowing since I moved to Cheyenne 10 years ago. And it just quit.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Come on.
That's just God laughing at you.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I know. Or various relatives going, see, we got you. Anyway, and I talked to other people, says, yeah, the first time I ever got a kite, I figured, it's Cheyenne, I've got wind. So I'm not the only person to have suffered this.
Also, you get people to move here and they go, oh, well, I'll go fly a kite because it's always a little windy. But they don't realize it's a lot windy.
Yes, well, and you do have to balance when you fly the kite because kites do kind of collapse in high winds.
Fold up into
big
big balls
go,
of
tonk.
Yeah.
Yeah, or something like
and
that.
And then kids cry and it's terrible.
Yes, they do. Anyway, let's jump to the phones. Good morning, you're on CarGab.
You know, Nick, I got a hammer that'll fix that computer.
Oh, you know what? I am so tempted. So tempted. It is just so frustrating. I have absolutely no clue what it did, but it just wiped out all the commercials for the rest of the half hour. So I'm not going to worry about commercials, so we can talk for the next 20 minutes.
Okay, well, I got a question for you. For many a moon, I have thought that I understood the difference between a flathead and overhead valve engine. However, I went through a brief period of insanity a couple weeks ago thinking that I might like to get another Corvair. So I sent away for a book on Corvairs and I was reading it and I saw the schematic where the valves are in fact in the head. And I thought flathead meant the valves were in the block.
Okay, so you are confusing, with no disrespect, a flat engine versus a flathead engine. Okay. So a Corvair, which I love dearly, is a flat engine, or also known as a boxer engine, or a horizontally opposed engine, a la Volkswagen Bug, Subaru, or BMW motorcycle twins. So those are considered flat engines against V engines or inline engines. Okay? So the Corvair is a flat 6 overhead valve. When we go to cylinder heads, the flathead, or as we know in Britain, side valve, the valves are operated in the cylinder block. And are very, very inefficient because the fuel dynamics has to come up round sort of 90 degrees into the combustion chamber, and the head is really only there to hold the spark plug and stop and allow compression to happen. Overhead valve, the valves are actually sitting in the head and are operated by a camshaft operating through push rods going up to the valves. You then got the third version of a head, and there are others, but we're not going to get into them, of overhead cam.
Right.
That is where the camshaft sits on top of the valves, which are operating directly, the cam operating directly on the valves, opening them.
Okay, so your traditional Model T, Model A engine is a flat head.
It is a
valves
flat
in the
head,
block.
correct. Valves in the block.
And the Corvair is a flat because of the configuration.
Because of the
cylinder.
configuration of the cylinders, correct.
But still the valves in the head.
Okay. Well, that had me totally confused when I was looking at the schematic. I said, wait a minute, there's valves in the head.
Yeah, it is. It is a push on it. It's actually very much related, that engine, in many ways, to an aircraft engine. If you look at any of the piston engines that are running pretty much any Cessna or aircraft, small aircraft of that ilk, they're all going to be most are going to be flat sixes, overhead valve operated, like the Lycomings and things like that.
Yeah, okay.
And
by the way, there was a gorgeous Corvair down at Cruise Night, the side ramp last week.
Oh, a side ramp. I love those
very
things.
cool. Side ramp pickup.
Yeah, one day I've got to
Blue
get
and
mine.
white.
One
Really
day
cool.
I've got to get mine finished. One day. It's not that far away. But Father did a ton of work on it, and then we moved house, and, well, you know. It's a project that needs to be finished.
Yeah,
Yet
we should
another
bail
one.
it out. It'd be good.
So, well, thanks for the call. I hope that cleared it up for you.
It does. Thanks, Nick.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And let's jump over to line 2. Good morning, you're on Car Gap.
You ready for a tangent?
A tangent? A tangent in a different direction at the hands of you. No, I'm not ready for it. I'm actually slightly terrified.
Well, actually, the winter issue of the Nickel Plate Society magazine reproduced a transcript of the testimony of the former general manager of that railway in late 50s, and he was describing the operation of that little railroad. And by the time I got done reading it, I was dumbfounded. What those people could accomplish with what they had was astounding.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for anybody that likes history, I'll throw in a plug for the Society for the simple reason that stuff like this is vanishing. And they're trying to erase who controls the past, who controls the future. And I think we better start controlling the past instead of the Ministry of Truth. So head over to nkphts.org and have a look and maybe join the society and have a little bit of fun with it, and Howard is waiting with bated breath for your call.
Yeah, and I do have him. I've just got to get up here to the studio with some time to record some others, and I do need to get some more done because I know when I do take time off, they want to change it up so you're not always listening to the same show. But I've got about 12, I think, or so in the hopper, but I need to add about another 15. So I will be giving him a call.
Cool.
Okay.
Have fun.
You too. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Flush twice.
Bye-bye. So, now that he Skits can call back, I'm sure. Well, I know he can call back. He probably will. So I got a package this week at the store.
Okay. This is I was hoping to hear about this. There was some addressing.
There was.
You mouthed something to me when that first came up that was
yes, because
not
this
very
was your
flattering.
fault.
This is
the address, much to the hilarity of my fellows over at Cheyenne Motorsports, was to Nick Skits Jr. Dodson.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks a lot. You created that monster.
Yeah, so there's been a few of those things that I've been credited for. There was the Psycho Barbie incident regarding a certain mayor that we had.
Yeah, no. Let's not go down that road. No.
It's just that sometimes these passing comments.
I know they just take up. Skits Jr. has now landed. Thanks a lot.
Well, you kind of came in getting all Luddite, and it's just sort of seemed like you needed that. So.
Really?
It was just one time.
Only one time. Yeah. But I have been kind of around him now for every weekend for 14 years, so there's bound to be something kind of rubs off.
There's an interesting question that is going around automotive stuff especially, but I think of a lot of other things that we buy that we've just kind of grown to love and appreciate that are, American things. And it's we're kind of told like, well, the market is trending away from sedans. We were talking about that earlier.
Yes,
like everybody wants the SUV.
Everyone wants. Basically, they all want to drive something that is essentially a 1960s station wagon,
right?
But not call it that.
Yeah, and then the electric vehicles. I think this is where the Skits Jr. thing originally might have came out. Was a conversation on e-vehicles?
I have been accused by people who purport to say they kind of like me of becoming a grumpy old curmudgeon who doesn't want to change.
Yeah, I don't think I called you curmudgeon-y, did I?
No, Brick did.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's curmudgeon-y thing. So the question is, though, is this actually as organic as we're being made to believe, or is there, and this would be borderlining on a Skits thing, is there sort of a manufactured consent going on, to borrow a term from Noam Chomsky? Is it a little bit like, the companies and the media and the government in certain instances are telling us that this is what we want, so we start thinking that this is what we want, and it's just what the corporations are building.
I think there's a little bit on the electric. I'm sure there's something about that on the pickup truck craze, SUV craze. If you look at where we sat with our vehicles we were purchasing when I moved to this country, for example, in 92, mostly sedans, and there were a few parts bin specials is the best way of calling them. One was Toyota, the 4Runner SUV,
the Bronco.
Ford Explorer SUV, the Bronco 2 SUV, which actually, if you looked carefully, you could, in fact, in the case of the 4Runner, it literally was a plastic hardtop bolted to their pickup truck.
Yeah.
So what they did and what they have done and what they continue to do is create an entire line of vehicles based on one vehicle that really hasn't changed a heck of a lot in the last 30 years.
Sure.
So their research and development, their R&D costs drop like a rock. But people get all excited about them for whatever reason, and they actually ask a heck of a lot more money for them. I mean, at the extreme end, a Lincoln Navigator or a Lincoln Aviator or whatever they call it today, or a Cadillac Escalade,
it's like a Ford Ranger,
is a fluffed up 1972 F-150 or Chevy C10.
Right. Yeah. And I wonder, and so in this area I get it, because they did stop making heavy cars that can...
So they did stop making heavy cars. They just made them heavy trucks.
Well, but so your sedans and things like that could actually navigate really terrible weather and stuff like that. The ground clearances are much lower. So in the wintertime, I understand this area wanting something.
But this is all over the country.
It is. And when we were in Florida in February, it was one of the things I remarked at. I'm surprised to see how many trucks, and I get trucks for guys who got to work, but how many Suburbans, and Tahoes,
SUVs, and then they've gone from the full size to the cute
to these
the CUVs.
compact.
Yeah,
and I would think, one of the great benefits of living in Florida is you don't have to have stupid 4-wheel drive. I mean,
well, of course, a lot of them don't.
Right, which makes them even more kind of dumb.
Or does it? Is it people want that space? Or is it just they've been produced into thinking they want that space? Because there is now nothing else to buy.
And that's the question.
And that's absolutely, is it manufactured? And I agree with you 100%, yes. There are, however, manufacturers, and I spoke about one earlier, Subaru. I mean, they took basically a completely failed car in the Legacy wagon.
The failed comic. That was...
Well, yeah, no, I mean, it's true. They had a thing called a Subaru Legacy. It was an okay car. It was kind of boring looking. It was gutless. It wasn't terribly well built, but it was okay.
Right.
Subaru hired a failed comic from Australia, Paul Hogan, and they stuck a cowboy hat on him, or an Australian cowboy hat, and they put large springs on the Legacy. They put plastic fenders on it. They called it the Outback, and they completely designed a new type of vehicle for America.
Right.
And I mean, they've dominated. I mean, this region, in this area, they are the. And having said that, being very rude about it, what did I buy? Or what did Brooke and I buy for our daughter when we wanted her safe on the roads between here and Laramie? We bought her an Outback.
Yeah,
and she loves it.
And
it's really funny watching her come down the road. Have you ever driven towards Gabby you always know it's Gabby's Subaru because she's looking through the steering wheel and there's a huge dog in the front seat looking through the roof.
So we had an Outback, and they're a good little car. And gives you that ground clearance from the old sedans that, so you're not running over every stupid curb in Cheyenne.
Absolutely, and the all-wheel drive works. I mean, they're relatively economical to run. They're well built now. The engines are tough as tough. They're a good all-round vehicle. But Subaru, and I actually knew somebody who was with Subaru, left Subaru in 1994 because they were absolutely convinced they'd been warned Subaru was pulling out of America. It was failed. It was a failed experiment. And then the Outback happened.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
So I would argue that these compact SUVs and mid-size, smaller mid-size SUVs, like the Traverse, maybe the
Ford Edge.
The Edge, these things. Kia's got a couple. You're not getting any extra space in those. I've driven these things. You're shoehorned into the Jeep Liberty, man. It's ridiculous. It's not even funny. And the Encore by Buick, and we love our Enclave, the big Buick Enclave.
Yeah, but the Encore is a slightly upset egg.
It really is. You're just in this.
Oh, yeah.
And
I feel like one of those cartoon cars. When I see an Buick Encore, I feel like I'm in a cartoon from the 80s where it was always the little joke guy running around.
Yeah, with Magilla Gorilla driving the...
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And you're going to have a lot more space and comfort in the old, your Impala, your Taurus, your Crown Vics.
Well, the Taurus would be sitting on the side of the road with bad transmission, but...
I understand.
Although it was actually a well-designed car as far as
the Chrysler
body.
300.
It's a brilliant car.
The Chargers.
Of course, the Chrysler 300 is what? The Charger is what? Do you know what the basis of that vehicle is?
No, I don't.
Mercedes E-Series.
No, okay, that makes sense.
That's why it's so good.
Yeah, and though but they have huge trunks. You can get way more into an Impala trunk than you can in the back of some of these hatchback SUVs.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember with Brooks SUV, we had plenty of room for the people, but there was room for 2 suitcases behind the rear
5
seats.
shoe boxes, and a 6-pack.
And every time you open it up, you got attacked by that week's grocery shopping.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's too bad to see.
But it's the way it's gone. It will change. I mean, electrification is going to change. I don't like it. I don't like electric cars just because of the way they sound. But it's happening, and it's going to happen. It's not going to change.
That makes sense for people that are commuting into a city. So if you're living in Loveland and commuting to Denver for work or something like that, it makes sense.
And you've got Audi now jumping on board, and BMW and Mercedes and GM and Ford. They're all going up against Tesla Tesla, I think, will fail, but I've been saying that for years. They're poorly built.
No, it's hard to fail when you keep getting big money from the government.
Well, that's going to stop at some point.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do want to mention in the news was a very interesting thing that did not get reported at all over here. But the Europeans just fined BMW and VW, Audi.
Okay.
But not Mercedes. Because wait for this. Remember the VW Dieselgate, right?
Right. Yeah.
So at a similar time, VW, Daimler, Mercedes, Daimler-Benz, and BMW all did an agreement very quietly that they were going to stop developing any type of new emissions controls because that costs some money.
Okay.
And so they did a little collusion thing. Well, we're just not going to do it, and then we won't cost ourselves money. Anyway, the authorities in Germany or wherever, the EEC, noticed nothing had been happening, and you haven't been developing anything new on these. So Daimler-Benz went, well, yeah, we need to chat to you about that. If you promise not to fine us, we'll tell you what's been going on.
Oh, they turned state's evidence.
And they turned state's evidence. And so BMW and Volkswagen just got almightily massive,
that's terrible,
huge fines. And Mercedes walked away scot-free.
And we are too, but we are at...
And that is in the news, folks. I mean, look it up. That is something that has just happened. And I was really surprised that it did not get mentioned.
This seems like the golden era of... this is probably the best a combustion engine has been.
It's incredible. What we're getting out of the internal combustion engine, which is now a well over 100-year design, right? It's 130 years. It's probably one of the most successful designs ever.
Right.
In how it's lasted without really any great change. But no, it's at the end of its time.
What is the Coyote getting out of a 5-liter? The 5-liter Coyote
I mean,
700.
Yeah, I mean, they get 700 horsepower. You've got 500 horsepower V8s that are returning 23 to the gallon going down the highway.
The 6.2 Super Sport we got is going well over 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you've got small engines in small vehicles that are actually far more efficient than the electric vehicle for the amount of carbon, that's electricity that was created.
And clean. Look, you can run these in a closed garage now.
Right, but it's
not a good idea.
No, don't do that, please. But the carbon issue is still the carbon issue. But the electricity is still a carbon issue because we're not all, as much as they're flapping the windmills up everywhere they can, it's still a relatively small part of our power is coming from a non-carbon source. Right. Well, you know what?
I think
we're done. We've got about 1 minute left. Doug is in here ready to take over from us and give you all the local news. And we will be back here next week on CarGab. Or you won't be. Well, you might be. Who knows?
Hey,
actually, no. I lied. I will be here. But I won't be here. Because one of the cool things that's happening next week is we are going to be live on location at the Cubby Hole.
Right.
Which is a new vehicle condo system that has been built out on Deloraine. When is this? I don't know. We will be there though, live on location, talking to people about what they can find at the Cubby Hole if they've got somewhere they need to store vehicles. It's a really, really, really cool idea, and so we'll be talking about that on location next week here on CarGab. And with that, we're done. Everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Grieving families have received word. I'm Pam Huso, Fox News. More bodies have been recovered from the pile of rubble where a condominium tower once stood in Surfside, Florida.
Miami-Dade officials say the recovery mission at the site of that condo building collapse is moving along with great urgency. Overnight, more bodies were pulled from underneath the heavy concrete and metal remains of Champlain Tower South. The death toll now at 86. 43 people are still potentially unaccounted for as first responders desperately try to provide closure to the families.
Fox says Charles Watson, work at the site was briefly halted this morning because of lightning strikes.
There are two different operations underway now at the site. One at the original collapse site, working very carefully to recover victims, and the other at the more recently collapsed remaining building to quickly remove the rubble.
Surfside Mayor Charles Burkett. The all-clear's been given at Fort Lauderdale International Airport following a security investigation that evacuated 2 terminals. Travelers are asked to check with their airlines for updated flight information. Finance ministers from the G20 nations have wrapped up talks in Venice. They agree that the economic outlook is better than it was in April, but they warn that new COVID-19 variants could threaten the recovery. They also endorsed a global corporate tax rate of at least 15%. They won't be canceled. That's the theme of a conservative gathering in Dallas this weekend.
They attack our First Amendment freedom of speech with censorship from big tech, with the cancel culture, with speech suppression by government activities.
House Republican Mo Brooks of Alabama, who's running for Senate, CPAC wraps up tomorrow with a speech by former President Trump. America's listening to Fox News.
Hey, it's Brett Larson, inviting you to download and listen to the new daily Fox on Tech podcast. There's part of a colorful late 90s iMac on Mars. It's an idea that seems a lot like Kickstarter, called Build It. This isn't the first time we've heard about North Korea hackers trying to get a leg up on COVID-19, a range that was used for satellite TV service in the 70s. Get the latest trends in technology, cybersecurity alerts, and gadget news daily. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
He's being described as a good husband, father, and sheriff's deputy. Authorities in Webster Parish, Louisiana say Deputy William Collins Jr. was fatally shot last night while responding to a disturbance call at a home in Doyline, about 20 miles east of Shreveport. Jason Parker is the Webster Parish sheriff.
My main focus over the next few days, over the next few weeks, months, is going to support them and give them all that I can to help make this better and give them some closure.
The suspect, who barricaded himself inside the home, was taken into custody. Shoplifting appears to have become sport in San Francisco. Seems like every other day there's new video of a brazen theft.
Target says it's reducing its hours in 6 of its stores in San Francisco because of the continuous theft. Now Walgreens, too, deciding to close some of its stores there, 17 stores in San Francisco. And this comes after authorities arrested a man who slowly rode a bicycle through a Walgreens store in San Francisco. That man is now facing charges connected to at least 7 shoplifting incidents since May.
Fox's Christina Coleman. Earlier this week, thieves made off with thousands of dollars in merchandise from a Neiman Marcus. If you're looking to strike it rich, don't play this lottery in Hawaii.
Hey, want a goat? Here's your chance. The state of Hawaii is holding a lottery where the winners get goats. They're not native to our 50th state, and Pu'uhonua o Honauna'u National Historic Park on the Big Island is overrun with nearly 700 of the invasive critters. Interested? Then you'll need to get a permit. They'll be issued through a random lottery on July 28th. All applicants must indicate how many they want, and if you do win, you'll need an enclosed horse trailer to pick them up. That way the pesky little things won't try to escape.
Fox
team to get you on the road. Stop in today or visit KiaofCheyenne.com.
Your day weather forecast is brought to you by Bob Ruard Motors, an honest, upfront deal. All roads lead to BobRuardMotors.com. Your Saturday forecast will feature mostly sunny skies, temps cool and comfortable into the upper 70s and low 80s. Northerly winds will be breezy at 15 to 25. For tonight, clear skies, lows in the low to mid 50s. Your Sunday outlook, keeping it sunny with highs in the lower to mid 80s. Back in the upper 80s, low 90s, sunny and dry for Monday. Lows in the low to mid 50s. I'm day weather meteorologist Don Watzel.
AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne's #1 news talk radio station. On the phone, I have Marion Smith-Orr. Marion, of course, known as the former mayor of Cheyenne, but what she's doing with us today, she is the she's the CEO of American Crypto Fed, which is a new DAO. Good morning, Marion.
Good morning. It's good to speak with you again.
So what exactly is a DAO? I'm not sure people understand that.
Yeah, it's a DAO stands for a decentralized autonomous organization, and it's what it is it's a form of LLC, which is a limited liability corporation, and it's a way of forming an organization or a corporation in our case that is it's done through the use of blockchain technology. And through that, participants in the organization can make consensual decisions without really having a governing body, if you will, that comes in and votes and oversees everything. It's used throughout all of the organizational members have voting rights, if you will. And unlike kind of your current business organizations, if you think that they probably have annual meetings and changes to the bylaws and having to get together to cast votes, this is done very quickly and allows for again greater government through everybody that's a participant, and also a large savings both in time and cost for organizations. And it's a brand new, as I mentioned, it's a brand new organizational structure within the state of Wyoming Secretary of State's office. And it's legislation that our Wyoming state lawmakers have been looking at for several years. And Wyoming, much like we were in the 1970s, the very first state to recognize limited liability companies, Wyoming is now the first state in the entire nation to recognize these DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations.
So, Marion, this obviously is not my area of expertise, but as a layman, it sounds like, I don't know if this is the right term, a corporate direct democracy. Would that be a fair characterization?
Yeah, that's a really good way to describe it, Doug. It really is. It really takes it decentralizes. It takes the power away from any one entity, any kind of corporate entity. In fact, I think we kind of made it clear in the press release that ideally I won't even be CEO, because there shouldn't be a CEO of a DAO going forward, but somebody has to file the paperwork and organize the organization, and then once there are members within the organization, it's all of the voting is spread across the organization.
So at some point, does your title as CEO, do you go away, or is that permanent, or how does that work?
Yeah, at some point the title goes away, and I'm just a member of the organization like anybody else is a member of the organization.
Okay, now as the name kind of implies, it's cryptocurrency. Again, I'm not sure everybody grasps the concept. It's a term that's still a little new to some people.
Right.
Explain that to us, if you would.
Sure. So, cryptocurrency is certainly it's emerging. It's been around for a while. Bitcoin, people certainly have been hearing about Bitcoin and now Dogecoins and different exchanges that are out there within the markets. I'll tell you a little bit about how ours is different, but when people think of cryptocurrency, they typically think about, Bitcoin and how that really fluctuates in the markets. And there's a lot of question as far as, really real-world, everyday practicality use of cryptocurrency. Even the federal government is taking a look at making even our U.S. dollar digital, if you will. The pandemic and COVID certainly brought a lot of this to light when businesses, at one point, some businesses weren't accepting actual physical money. You had to use your a credit card or a debit card or some digital form of payment, if you will. And so the federal government is looking at, possibly taking our U.S. dollar and making that digital. But cryptocurrency is, again, a really emerging technology, and it's actually a lot more fraud resistant than what people would think too, because of the blockchain technology and the technology that's behind it that really allows for anti-money laundering and knowing really who the customers are that you're working with, and you think about too just our U.S. dollar and how often that is counterfeited around the world. So cryptocurrency is definitely an emergent technology, and we will be launching into that space here in the future as well.
Now, how is this company going to make money? I mean, where's the profit here?
Well, it's interesting in that it's not so much about profitability. What we are really trying to do is create a new currency that is used wildly through the merchants and consumers, and the mission, unlike what we're experiencing with our U.S. dollar and the devaluation of it, is that the mission of what we will be launching is a new monetary currency that has zero inflation and zero deflation, and is really quite stable, and then again used from the merchant to consumers, peer-to-peer transactions, but again really targeting that zero inflation and zero deflation, and then really what the ultimate goal is too is a huge savings for merchants. Every time I go downtown Main Street, use my debit card or credit card, the merchants have to pay a fee to accept my money. And with this new monetary payment system, there will be no transaction fees for merchants.
Now, when you say it's digital, and Marion, this is all new to me, so you're going to have to, if I'm off, you're going to have to help me here. I'm sort of assuming then that there would be no paper or coins. You would just break out your phone and do a digital transaction. Is that how that would work?
Yes, absolutely. And so the way essentially that it would work is I would go to a participating bank, and through becoming a customer of that bank, they know who I am. So that's the whole anti-money laundering, or AML, and then KYC compliant is know your customer. So individuals are then recognized to the bank, and essentially what I can do is transfer. I can download a digital wallet onto my phone, and I can transfer funds from my bank in U.S. dollars to the currency, which we are calling the ducats, and then that's available in a wallet, and I can go to a participating merchant or hot dog stand or a Friday on the Plaza and pull up my QR code and exchange fees and the cost, if you will, for the transaction that way. And what's beautiful is that I actually get rewards back for a transaction I make, and then whoever I'm doing business with, they get that money instantaneously in their wallet as well. They can exchange it for U.S. dollars, or they can keep it in Ducat, and they're not charged a transaction fee for that transaction, if you will, that occurred.
Now, a couple of questions here. For foreign travel, would you still have to get a currency exchange, or would this be recognized internationally, ideally?
Well, ideally, it'll be recognized internationally, but we're a ways off from that. We're certainly starting off here in Wyoming, and also with states that are also looking at adopting, if they haven't already, the kind of legislation that we have introduced. They don't necessarily have to recognize DAOs, but several mayors across the country have expressed really an interest in taking their communities and their municipalities into the cryptocurrency dynamic.
And what are the advantages of that for a governmental entity?
Well, for governmental entities, with what we are with what we're going to be rolling out, again, the governmental agencies, much like our merchants, I experienced this with the city of Cheyenne. We spend a lot of money on those transaction fees.
Right.
So every time a business permit is pulled and a business owner wants to use their credit card or debit card, that comes out of somebody's wallet, and usually it's the city's, or it's passed on to the consumer. And what this system will allow then is for those transactions to take place instantaneously, but without those transaction fees, because there's no need to, because of the automation and the blockchain technology. There is no reason to charge a transaction fee because there's no cost involved.
So it's sort of like a credit card without the transaction fees.
That's absolutely one way to look at it. Yeah, but without having the debts, if you will, or interest rates being having to be charged. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm speaking with Marion Smith Orr, CEO of American Crypto Fed. We're talking about, first of all, a new form of corporate entity called a DAO. This is something that was approved in the legislature just earlier this session, and we're going beyond that and talking about cryptocurrency. Now, I believe in the release I read, and you mentioned the Ducat, I believe there's also going to be a lock issued. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we are going to have two tokens. So the Ducat is a token designed for daily transactions, and it has a store of value, and again, protecting its price from fluctuations against the dollar. And the market price is managed to be really close to a target exchange rate. And again, that's done through great technology, machine learning, and then a linear control theory that really is able to keep everything stable versus the fluctuations that we certainly see in our case with the U.S. dollar, the devaluation of it. And then the other token is what's referred to as a governance token, and that is it's one that we're calling Locke, and we've named it Locke after John Locke, and certainly going with the principles of the Declaration of Independence and monetary independence, and that token is designed to be the stability for the Ducat. So essentially, that is the token that we use to base the supply of and keep that control within the Ducat. So with the Ducat, there will be unlimited tokens available, and the lock will be limited to 10 trillion lock tokens when it's launched.
When will this all be up and running, if we know?
Well, we are really we're a few months out. We are working definitely to be compliant within the Securities Exchange Commission. There have been, of course, in the news, lots of talk as far as regulation. We want to make sure that we are fully federally in compliance, and specifically with what's referred to as Safe Harbor 2.0 proposal within the Securities Exchange Commission. Commissioner Hester Pierce has that proposal out there, and so we're making sure that we are federally regulated and with compliance, and that of course takes a little bit of time, but we're hoping here with before the end of the year. And I'll just say this, as far as Wyoming and being the first, news got out, and Wyoming's been making international news with this. We really underestimated the amount of excitement that this would generate, and there have been literally hundreds of different stories written and translated across the world about this new organization. And I've been reached out to via different social media platforms, with companies now looking at wanting to move their headquarters to Wyoming under this new organizational business structure that we have. So we've really gained some international attention. We've got lots of people wondering when they can, purchase the coins, and we'll be sure to let everybody know when that happens.
Okay, I'm speaking with Marion Smith Orr, CEO of American Crypto Fed. We're talking about cryptocurrency and the new decentralized autonomous organization, of which my understanding is this company is the first of its kind in the world in that regard. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been working certainly with members of the legislature. We've got a local attorney here in town. Matt Kaufman has been fantastic. He's with Hathaway and Kuntz law firm, and at midnight on July 1st, he was up and filing our paperwork in the Secretary of State's office, and we heard back from Secretary of State Buchanan's office at 12:11 a.m. on July 1st that our organization was the first to register, and it certainly probably wasn't the last on that day, and won't be the last going forward. There's a lot of interest in this new form of limited liability corporations.
Okay, and we are taking calls, 632-3323. I would ask that you stick to the subject of American Crypto Fed and the new DAO. Marion, does this present any particular regulatory challenges as opposed to traditional currency? Does the government have to deal with things they wouldn't have to deal with otherwise?
No, actually, it's less regulated, if you will, as far as what we think of as government. It's governed by the participants in the program. And that's, if we think about even our own system of government, wouldn't it be great if we probably had a lot more say in some of the decision making that happens? And with this new organization, that's how it's governed.
Now, I'm sure at some point you'd like to expand beyond the borders of Wyoming. Is there any legislation pending in other states to allow for that?
Well, yes. I believe that Arizona and possibly Utah have really taken Wyoming's legislation and pretty much mirrored it. But what's great about this is we actually don't have to have full legislation by other states to carry it forward. It's something that what we're going to be doing is working directly with banks that are able to host our wallet, if you will. We have banks that are interested in talking with us and partnering with us. And then we've also been really engaged in working with an organization called the Merchants Advisory Group, or the MAG. And that group is an organization of approximately 170 of the largest retailers in the country, if you will. So think about, all of your grocery store names, your big box names, and then working along too with reaching out to organizations like our Downtown Development Authority and Chambers of Commerce, and getting merchants involved in the conversation of what it would look like for them to receive this form of currency and be able to conduct business with it as well. So it's there's a lot of work to be done over the next few months and certainly years. There is within the Securities Exchange Commission in this particular proposal, there's a 3-year pilot, kind of, if you will, and so this is something that's going to take a lot of work to certainly get launched, but it's growing, and we certainly have mayors from around the country that are interested as well.
Now, let's assume I wanted to spend some of these ducats. Would I go to my bank and open up a special account? Would I go online? What would I need to do?
Yeah, ideally you would just be able to go online and let them know that you want to open up and download a new wallet onto your smartphone, and then make that exchange very seamlessly. As many of us probably, use Venmo or something kind of similar to transfer funds back and forth, something very similar to that. And then, so that transaction then, yes, would happen from your bank and then into your digital wallet on your smartphone. And then, ideally, you could, go down to Fridays on the Plaza or another event and pull up your smartphone and the QR code and make that purchase, and then actually receive ducats back, or rewards back into your wallet for using that purchase, and then no cost to the merchant on the other end for that transaction fee.
Would there be any concern about hackers getting in and stealing money or counterfeiting money or anything like that?
No, and that again that's the beauty of the blockchain technology. It's much more safe than our traditional way of doing business, if you will, with the banks and hacking accounts. And then again, just the U.S. dollar and forgeries in general.
Okay, I'm speaking with Marion Smith-Orr. We're talking about American Crypto Fed, which is a DAO, a form of corporate entity, which actually was just approved in our legislature last year. Marion, was that bill written specifically at the behest of American Crypto Fed, or did you jump on the opportunity once it was there?
It's the latter. We jumped on the opportunity once it was there. Our organization was actually registered as a corporate entity prior to July 1st. We were registered with the Secretary of State's office as just a general corporate filing, and so we switched over and made some adjustments to our organizational structure and switched over. So we didn't need this structure to get up and running, but it certainly, we believe, is it's a better way of really conducting governance, if you will, by all of the people, by the people and for the people of the organization.
How much hesitance, if any, are you running into people because this is just such a new concept?
Really, we haven't run into hesitancy, because even the merchants that we speak with, and we've actually been in contact and have been part of different forums within the Merchants Advisory Group. We've done webinars. We've got speaking engagements at their annual conference in September in Florida. Merchants really know that digital currency, digital forms of payment it's coming, if not even here. And again, what really amplified, if you will, the need for it was certainly the coronavirus and people not taking physical money so much anymore. And so what we're hearing not only across the nation with the merchants and the excitement of not having to spend those transaction fees that really cost businesses a lot of money, and we know that the margin profitabilities are slim, and so the merchants are really excited about it. And what we're hearing, even internationally, is the need for a monetary system that is zero inflation and zero deflation, and one that is not susceptible to the whims, if you will, of governments. And the only way to do that is through this autonomous organizational kind of structure that really takes machine learning and mathematical formulas, and on a monthly and quarterly basis gauges where the spending is how consumer spending is going, and can adjust so that it really is truly a stable economy, a stable token without the devaluation that our U.S. dollar has.
This is a little bit philosophical and perhaps slightly far afield, but I'll ask anyway. Is this going to lead to a cashless society at some point?
I don't know that we will completely ever get away from cashless. Certainly not completely away from the U.S. dollar, but counterfeiting is a big deal, and I do see us possibly getting away from cashless, but it'll certainly take some time.
Marion, why did you get involved with this?
Well, I was really thrilled to be asked. Before the end of the year, shortly after the election, Representative, some of you all might remember, Representative Tyler Lindholm was very active in actually the blockchain committee and getting this legislation and other legislation going forward. He was the previous CEO, and he went to work for Senator Cynthia Lummis when she was elected, and I met the folks, the team that I am a part of, a couple years ago in a legislative hearing when I was actually testifying as mayor about how fantastic blockchain can be for even communities such as Cheyenne in being able to keep records safe and secure and basically out of file cabinets. And so I met this team back in 2018, and the opportunity arose when Tyler Lindholm went to work for Senator Cynthia Lummis, and they asked me to step in, and I started the day after I left office. So I've it's certainly new and exciting, and I'm really excited for not only this opportunity, but for Wyoming, again, to be first on the map and really the international recognition that the state's getting for the work that's been done by our legislature.
Okay, I'd like to thank my guest. We've been speaking with Marion Smith Orr. Marion, is there a website people could go to learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. It's www.americancryptofed.org.
Thanks, Marion. I appreciate it.
Have a great day, Doug.
Talk to you later. AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne's #1 news talk radio. Coming up on a news and information break here at the bottom of the hour.
Your day weather forecast is brought to you by Bob Ruard Motors, an honest upfront deal. All roads lead to BobRuardMotors.com. Your Saturday forecast will feature mostly sunny skies, temps cool and comfortable into the upper 70s and low 80s. Northerly winds will be breezy at 15 to 25. For tonight, clear skies, lows in the low to mid 50s. Your Sunday outlook, keeping it sunny with highs in the low to mid 80s. Back to the upper 80s, low 90s, sunny and dry for Monday. Lows in the low to mid 50s. I'm day weather meteorologist Don Watson.
I'm Tiffany. I have some tips for you on how to quit smoking like I did. First, I did some reading about it. I found a lot of great advice on how to quit smoking and picked out the ways I thought would work best for me. I started by setting a quit date. Then I threw out my ashtrays, lighters, and matches. I did other things too, like exercising more, and it worked. But I'd still get cravings, especially on long car rides. To help me with that, I put a picture of my mother in my car. She died of lung cancer from smoking cigarettes when I was only 16. Now I have a 16-year-old daughter. That picture of my mother reminds me that I don't want to miss all the things my daughter is going to do in her life, including turning 17.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC. 1 in 3 adults in America have pre-diabetes, but most don't know it. To let people know it can be reversed before it becomes type 2 diabetes, professional basketball player Julius Randle is doing everything in reverse.
I'm only dunking with reverse windmills. I drove the whole way to practice in reverse. I don't recommend it. This move's called the reverse shuffle. I do recommend it. And it took me months to learn how to speak in reverse, like this. Years 10 almost for diabetes type 2 with living Ben has mama. In other words, my mom has been living with type 2 diabetes for almost 10 years. So together, we want to say to the 84 million Americans at risk, exercise and healthy eating can help reverse prediabetes. Start by taking a simple 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Bet he can't say that in reverse.
AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne's #1 news talk radio station. Thank you for joining us here on your Saturday. And I hope you're having a good weekend. Beautiful day outside. Right now on the phone, I have Stephen Brinkley. Stephen is with the Veterans Help Foundation of Wyoming. Good morning, sir.
How are you, Doug? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing well. I'm glad to have you on here this morning. Now, you guys have an event coming up, actually, July 17th. What's going on?
So we are doing an inaugural event called the Guns of Wyoming. And it is an event that gives people in Wyoming an opportunity to meet gun vendors that they never thought they would have an opportunity to meet. From the smallest manufacturer to hopefully some of the bigger ones are coming as well.
Now, why? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, why is that a veterans event per se?
Well, because a lot of veterans still like to shoot guns and go hunting, and a lot of veterans actually have FFLs to build firearms.
Okay.
Especially here in Wyoming.
Now, on your informational sheet here, I see raffles, silent auctions, a swap meet, I want to enunciate this carefully, Pucker Factor Precision Challenge. What is the Pucker Factor Precision? I can't talk. Precision Challenge. There we go.
Trust me, it's a tongue twister. So Pucker Factor Precision is a company out of Evanston, Wyoming. They make high-end rifles. I met this individual by sheer chance, and we started talking, and he loved what our organization is about with our mission of helping veterans get into the outdoors and elude the risk of suicide. When I told him about the event that we were thinking about kicking off, he said, well, why don't I sponsor a rifle for you guys that you can use for a specific event to give away something special. So what we are doing with the Pucker Factor Precision Challenge is 3 people are going to get drawn, and they will have the opportunity to shoot this rifle from Pucker Factor Precision, and they're going to get 3 shots at the 100, they're going to get 3 shots at the 200, and they're going to get a single shot at the 300. The 300-yard shot is going to be a coin shot.
Okay.
So the closest to the center of the coin with the tightest groupings on the 1 and the 2 are going to win a really nice rifle.
That takes some marksmanship to do that.
Yes, sir.
Now, tell us a little bit about the rifle, if you know. What is the prize rifle here? What can you tell us about it, if you know?
So the prize rifle is a Nemo firearm from Boise, Idaho, and it's a 308 AR-10. I believe they're putting a scope on it. I can tell you that it's going to be decorated. It's going to be a really nice rifle.
Okay, I'm speaking with Stephen Brinkley with the Veterans Help Foundation of Wyoming. We're talking about the Guns of Wyoming inaugural event, and that's coming up July 17th, which actually would be a week from today. It's going on at 975 Shadow Ridge Drive off Horse Creek Road in the Cheyenne area. Stephen, from your poster here, you're inviting business owners out. Is that right?
Yes, sir. So any business owner that wants to do a vendor booth, we're not charging any vendor fees, whether that's a food truck or whatever. The only thing we're going to ask at the end of the night is if you feel that you can do an in-kind donation, please do so. If you can't, we understand. Sometimes you don't make a lot of money at these events, and we're not trying to gouge anybody.
Stephen, how did this come about? This is the inaugural event. How did this all happen?
It happened in my mind.
Okay. Well, that's a good start.
I was talking to Chad Parsons, who's our president, and I said, hey, we don't want to do the typical banquet. That's what we're trying to get away from.
Because everybody does that.
Everybody does a banquet. You feel obligated to spend a whole lot of money, and things are tight right now. So, yes, are we going to have raffles? Absolutely. Are we going to have some big items that you're going to have an opportunity to win? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, it goes to help veterans. But when it comes to these vendors and these business owners that go out and do these vendor events, our thought process on that was, why charge them? Let them come out, see what our organization is about, and maybe that'll create a relationship with them where they want to help more in the future.
Okay, and speaking of the Veterans Health Foundation, you've been on our show before, so some of our listeners know a little bit about it, but some probably don't. Tell us a little bit about the Veterans Health Foundation.
So the Veterans Health Foundation was founded by a gentleman in Louisiana, and we met him in 2018 with bringing a couple of his veterans down in Louisiana up to Wyoming for an antelope hunt.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, we Chad and I made the decision to reach out to Veterans Health Foundation and see if they wanted to have a Wyoming chapter. And that's when we got kicked off, was late April of 2019.
So you're a relatively new organization then here locally.
Yes.
And you yourself are a veteran, correct?
Yes, I am. I served in the Navy from 1998 to 2010. And the reason I give back is I lost a really good friend. In fact, he was almost like a little brother to me on 9/11 and when the Pentagon got hit.
Mm-hmm.
I live with survivor's guilt because of it. When we were in ETA school together in Great Lakes, Illinois, he covered my 6 to allow me to take my former spouse back to the state of Washington, and he took the orders to the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, he and 13 other sailors were killed, murdered actually, on 9/11.
Stephen, what are some of the special challenges that veterans face?
You know, that's a good question, Doug. We face a lot of challenges. We battle our own demons from what we dealt with in our military career. Some veterans have traumatic brain issues or traumatic brain injuries, TBI. Almost, I think the percentage is something like 75 or 80% of all veterans have post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD. A lot of us have anxiety issues. But the biggest thing that most veterans miss and what causes a lot of issues is when you're in the military and you're on active duty, you form a brotherhood with people that are in your command.
Mm-hmm.
You create a camaraderie, and when you leave the military, whether it's you just decide to get out or you retire, all of a sudden you go from that camaraderie and that brotherhood to almost nothing. You don't have that person covering your 6 anymore, and it causes trauma to a lot of veterans, especially those of us who have served a lot of time in battle. I did 4 tours. I had 3 in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. So it makes it hard when you don't have the knowledge that if you get into a situation, you don't have that person behind you making sure that you're safe. You don't have that person you can reach out to when you're having a bad day. And so what Veterans Health Foundation is trying to accomplish, especially here in Wyoming, is we're trying to create that brotherhood again. We're trying to create that camaraderie, and it doesn't matter what branch you were in. Just know that we're going to pick on you equally, and you can pick back, and just come and join us and have fun and get out of the basement. We do more than hunting. We do fishing, we do hiking, camping, ice fishing. We'll do snowshoe hiking. We'll do shed hunts, anything, biking, anything you can think of to get a veteran into the outdoors. It's been proven for almost 2 decades now that it's almost more effective to have a veteran get into the outdoors and do an adventure than it is to have them sit in a room and talk to a counselor. And nothing against the counselors out there, if any of them are listening. I have my own counselor myself. But it's more, we find that it's been more effective.
Stephen, you mentioned something like 75 to 80% of veterans have PTSD. That would obviously include some who've not seen combat. So this is not strictly a combat-related issue. Is that correct?
Yes. PTSD does not have to be combat-related. There's many reasons that PTSD happen. Females, they unfortunately can have PTSD from being from sexual trauma. Males could have PTSD from sexual trauma. It's not just the ladies out there that deal with that. You could have had a bad command that, put a lot of pressure on you for certain issues, and that can lead to different things. I've known guys that have had PTSD from just going out to sea for 90 days and being away from land, and didn't realize that 90 days at sea was going to be that difficult.
I remember, and this is sort of a side note, but I remember touring the USS Cheyenne in 1996, and we got to tour it when they launched it. And I remember thinking, well, this is all high tech and it's all pretty cool and all that, but being under the sea, and I'm a rather larger person, I could see where people would get, for lack of a better term, cabin fever, for example, from serving on a sub. Does that sort of thing happen?
Yep. Oh, absolutely. More so on our fast attacks than on the SSBNs, the ballistic nuclear subs. I know a lot about submarines, even though I wasn't a submarine sailor. I served 2 tours on a sub base. Most of my friends were submariners, so they fast attacks deal with a lot of the cabin fever issue because they do long deployments. In fact, during the 2002-2003 deployment that I was on with the Abraham Lincoln, which, by the way, is the 5th longest deployment in naval history and the longest deployment in naval history for a nuclear aircraft carrier, 297 days. We had 2 subs with us that were fast attacks who did that same 297 days and never switched crews. It puts a strain on you. It puts a strain on your family. It puts a strain on everything.
Stephen, is there anything we could do as a society to ease the transition for military veterans from the military to civilian life? Tough question?
Yeah, that is a tough question, because a lot of people think that you leave the military and you're just going to transition back to what civilian life is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true.
Okay.
Some do, if they served maybe 3 years. But when you get into the vets that serve 6, 8, 10, 12, 20, 30, you just don't walk away from the military and the way we do things in the military and have that escape your mindset.
Okay.
I still fold my clothes in a certain way. I still make my bed in a certain way. When I'm invited to dinner, showing up at 15 minutes before the event was supposed to be kicked off is on time for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I show up at 6 o'clock, if that's what time the event is, I feel like I'm late.
Mm-hmm.
Even today. And many veterans are the same way. We just have things that are ingrained in us from the day we walk in to whatever branch we served in. And some things are ingrained harder than other branches. I mean, you talk to a Marine and you call him a former Marine and you may end up picking up your teeth.
Why is that?
Because there is no such thing as a former Marine.
Okay.
They are a Marine.
Well, and I see those,
and that's what they'll tell you.
I see those bumper stickers on cars, something like "not as lean, not as mean, but still a Marine."
Yes.
Or words to that effect. I don't know if I got that exactly right. Stephen, do you think that there's a lack of understanding in society in general for what veterans go through?
You know, the lack of understanding is becoming less. It's the lack of care after the understanding is what the issue is. You know, I don't want to get into a political thing, but you know, I struggle with the way our country's headed right now because I proudly served this country for almost 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And to see these people feel that they can ravage and break into and scare people and not have anything done to them is not okay with me. And I know that's part of their First Amendment rights, but I serve this country so that they can have that First Amendment right.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us veterans serve this country, and all of the active duty members that may be listening serve this country so that we have the rights that we have that are constitutionally there. And people are starting to understand us, but they don't care about it. And that's, I think, what really the issue is. Now, that's not everybody. Don't get me wrong, Doug. There are a lot of people that care
Mm-hmm.
about veterans. Cheyenne's a wonderful city where the majority of people love our veterans. But you drive 12 miles to the south, and it's a whole new world.
So does that go hand in hand with patriotism to some extent?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, I'm speaking with Stephen Brinkley with the Veterans Help Foundation of Wyoming. Again, coming up a week from today, they have the Guns of Wyoming inaugural event. Stephen, getting back to the event itself, if a business wants to take part, do they just show up or do they need to register? You said that they don't have to pay a fee.
Right. There's no fee. What I am asking is that if a business would like to come out, please contact me by phone or email. And if you could do me a favor, Doug, I know you have the flyer. If you could post that up wherever you do.
Sure. Absolutely.
And it's got my contact info. They can reach out to me by text, by phone, by email, and just let me know that they would like to attend. we're still trying to solidify food trucks. So if there's any food truck owners listening, we'd love to have you reach out to us and let us know that you'd like to be there. If there's a business that would like to make a donation, they can't attend, but they would like to make a donation, we're more than willing to accept that as well. We're like I said, we're just trying to make this the best we can, and let people have fun. The last thing that I'd like to let everybody know is that there is going to be a bouncy house that is water-based, so it's going to be fun for kids, so they may want to bring some change of clothes. Bullseye Archery, I'd like to give them a shout out. They are going to show up and set up a small archery range with some adjustable bows, so that if you're considering becoming an archer, you're going to have the ability to do that. The archery range, or the rifle and pistol range, are if you want to bring your own weapons and your own ammo, come out and shoot. We'd love to have you. And again, if you're part of the outdoors, you're an FFL, your optics, your whatever, anything that deals with guns, precision, whatever, we'd love to have you come out and have fun with us.
Stephen, any last thoughts for our listeners here this morning?
I'd just like to let everybody know that if you know a veteran that's in need, have them reach out to us. It's whether we know the veteran or not, it takes a toll on those of us that care about our brothers and sisters to lose one or 32 per day. Nationwide, the veteran suicide rate is 27 a day right now, and it's not being talked about.
Does that relate directly to PSD, or are there other issues there as well?
There PTSD, TBI, anxiety, they all relate to each other, and they all cause veterans to unfortunately do things that aren't safe. And that's the reason why our organization made the decision that we're going to stand up and let other veterans know that we want to recreate that camaraderie, and we want to recreate the knowledge that we have your six all the time.
So if there's a veteran that wants to join your organization, what should they do?
Have them call me, have them email me, have them text me. If they want to volunteer, we'll put them in. I'll get them in contact with our volunteer coordinator. If they want to do an outdoor adventure with us, I'll get them pointed in the right direction with our outdoor adventure application, which is more of just gives us information of who that veteran is and what they're interested in doing.
Okay.
Almost every organization does that now.
Stephen, when you guys have some more events coming up, be sure and let us know. We'll be happy to have you on there again.
That'd be great, Doug. I really appreciate the relationship that we're building together, and you getting the word out for us through your talk show.
Yeah, and we'll be sure and post that on our website too. So
we appreciate that.
Thanks, Stephen. Have a great weekend.
You as well, Doug.
Talk to you later. AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne's number one news talk radio station. That was Stephen Brinkley with the Veterans Help Foundation. That's about the inaugural Guns and Whamming event coming up next week. I think I just got the title wrong, but we'll be posting that on our website here in the next few days so you can get some details. That's happening actually a week from today, and we'll be putting the information on our website. Good to have you along here on a Saturday. Beautiful day outside. Got lucky with the weather, I think, this weekend. We're just in front of 12 noon. You're in tune with AM 650 KGAB. Cheyenne, Orchard Valley. You're in tune with the Weekend in
Slowly sifting through the rubble. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News. Crews at the collapsed Surfside condo building in Florida continue combing through the debris. But now that it's a recovery effort rather than a rescue, team leader Jay Settergreen says the pace of work has changed.
We're more focused on making sure that everybody stays as safe as possible, and we continue to do our job as diligently as we can, with that in the back of our mind, knowing that we need to make sure that we don't get injured ourselves or we won't be able to help, bring closure to this site.
Officials today raised the number of confirmed dead to 86, with 43 people missing. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen today called on other G20 finance ministers meeting in Venice, Italy, to move quickly in finalizing a global tax deal. The pact would establish a global minimum corporate tax of at least 15% in an effort to deter multinationals from shuffling money into low tax rate countries. In Charlottesville, Virginia, officials removed a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee that was at the center of a violent rally. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson reports.
In July 2017, white supremacists marched on Charlottesville. A month later, the infamous Unite the Right rally turned into a violent clash, resulting in the death of 32-year-old Heather Heyer. Joe Biden, then a candidate for president, said he was so moved by the tragedy it helped him to convince to run for office. President Trump said at the time that blame was on both sides for the violence. The city of Charlottesville voted to remove the statue after Virginia's Supreme Court weighed in and allowed the statue to be removed.
A nearby statue of Confederate General Stonewall Jackson was also removed. Pope Francis is resuming normal duties after undergoing intestinal surgery last weekend. Today, the pontiff celebrated Mass and is expected to deliver his weekly noontime prayer on Sunday. America is listening to Fox News.
Entitled Leadership, Justice, and Jobs in the Age of Wokeism, a conversation with conservative governors that will include Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt and Tennessee Governor Bill Lee. That's coming up. It's
Information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
What are the most important issues facing Americans today? Every Monday, join me, Brett Baer, Chief Political Anchor and Executive Editor of Special Report, and my rotating all-star panel of experts as we discuss the policies, practices, and solutions to the biggest and most important issues of the day. You can hear new episodes every Monday. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
The Fox News Rundown is a weekday morning podcast that dives deep into the major and controversial stories of the day. Hosted by the anchors of Fox News Radio. Subscribe now to hear a perspective of news you won't find anywhere else. Listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
While crimes committed with guns in America continues to rise this year, it seems that road rage is increasing as well. Fox's William LaJeunesse reports.
Jay Boughton got into a traffic altercation Tuesday night while driving near Minneapolis with his 15-year-old son, prompting someone in his SUV to open fire. Boughton lost control and crashed. His son tried CPR, but Jay died in his arms. Road rage is back. At least once a day, someone is shot at, injured, or killed, according to the Gun Violence Archive. Some call it cove rage. Heavy traffic, short tempers, an obscene gesture escalates the situation until one driver retaliates with a weapon. In the last 4 years, 22 Americans on average were killed or injured every month in road rage incidents, a number that has now nearly doubled to 42.
There are searches for suspects in road rage instances outside of Minneapolis, Houston, and Los Angeles as well. Tennessee's new law that outraged transgender people and their advocates has been blocked by a federal judge.
The new law signed by the governor said businesses had to post a sign if they allowed someone of either sex to use whichever public restroom they wanted to use inside the business, so whichever gender they identified with. Republicans said these signs were needed to protect people's privacy. The ACLU in Tennessee sued on behalf of two businesses, arguing it violates their First Amendment rights against compelled speech. Judge Aleda Trauger issued a temporary injunction stopping the new law, writing that anytime the government prevents prevents or compels speech, it undermines our democratic form of government. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
A rare unopened copy of Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda has sold at auction in Dallas for $870,000. The version was created during a limited production run in late 1987. The fantasy adventure game was first...
Stop in today or visit KiaofCheyenne.com for easy scheduling.
Your day weather forecast is brought to you by Bob Ruard Motors, an honest, upfront deal. All roads lead to BobRuardMotors.com. Your Saturday forecast will feature mostly sunny skies, temps cool and comfortable into the upper 70s and low 80s. Northerly winds will be breezy at 15 to 25. For tonight, clear skies, lows in the low to mid 50s. Your Sunday outlook, keeping it sunny with highs in the lower to mid 80s. Back in the upper 80s, low 90s, sunny and dry for Monday. Lows in the low to mid 50s. I'm day weather meteorologist Don Watzel.
1 in 6 seniors faces the threat of hunger, and millions more live in isolation. Drop off a hot meal and say a quick hello. Volunteer for Meals on Wheels by donating your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org. This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
And good morning and welcome once again to Weekend in Wyoming. On this segment, I'm speaking with Dave Jenkins. Dave Jenkins is the president of Conservatives for Responsible Stewardship. Good morning, Mr. Jenkins.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, I should mention this interview is pre-recorded on Friday, so we won't be able to take calls on this segment. And again, as with any topic I do, if somebody has an opposing viewpoint, you want to book a schedule or schedule a segment on Weekend in Wyoming, you're certainly welcome to do so. Mr. Jenkins, you're president of Conservatives for Responsible Stewardship. What is that?
That's pretty much what the name says. We're an organization. We have 20,000 members nationwide of conservatives who actually, really care about issues related to conservation, stewardship, safeguarding the environment, things like that. And we're also, fiscally conservative as well. So a lot of our policies also tie in with that fiscal stewardship aspect of conservatism.
Now, here in Wyoming, a lot of times conservative means you tend to favor the oil industry and favor the existing leasing system. Your organization doesn't really care for the oil and gas leasing system we have now, although there is a moratorium in place. But you'd like to see some changes, is that right?
Yes, definitely. As it stands now, the way the system works, the law's been in place for over 100 years and not been changed much. And the last real major change, and it wasn't that major, was like 40 years ago or something. And the problem is that it's supposed to work one way, and it's actually not working that way. The whole idea of putting these leases up for auction is that you get these parcels that are sought after because of their oil and gas production potential, and that companies will bid against each other and drive that price up. Mm-hmm. So therefore, the taxpayers are getting a good return on making that commodity available, right? It's a publicly owned commodity. And the problem is, the way it's been happening now is that, first of all, you can nominate these lands for lease anonymously. So these much more lands are being nominated for lease than the companies actually have an intent on leasing. And what some of this is that the companies nominate a lot of parcels to try to confuse competitors so that the parcels they actually want are not bid against and the price driven higher. So that means they get a lot of this acreage at the minimum bid of $2 an acre. So giving away land for $2 an acre I don't think was ever the real intent here. The real intent was that companies would bid against each other and we'd get a good return. And some of that happens in Wyoming. There's some parcels that get bid up, but there's more than 22% of the acreage leased in Wyoming over the past while has been going for that minimum bid of $2 an acre. So we want to see that system reformed. We want to make sure that there's some connection between what's going on with the market and with our leasing. Back during the pandemic, we had oil tankers lined up off the coast of California. Companies were going belly up because the price of oil was so low. It actually went below zero at one point. And yet we were still holding lease sales. Why would you hold a lease sale when there's such a glut of oil on the market? You're not going to get the best return. So why not hold off and wait till the market improves and then do your lease sale? So there's that. And then when you do get into production, the royalty rate for onshore production in the West is significantly less than the royalty rate if people are drilling offshore in the ocean.
Why is that?
So,
why is that?
I have no earthly idea. It makes no sense.
Okay.
Oil is oil, right?
Right. Okay.
So those things should be in line. There's legislation in Congress. It's bipartisan. Chuck Grassley and Jackie Rosen that would raise that minimum bid to $10 an acre to discourage some of this, nominating parcels and more beyond than what you really think is feasible to produce and get an economic return on. There's legislation in Congress to increase the bonding so that taxpayers are not left holding the bag with orphan wells, which is a problem. So there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. So we support the pause because we need to reform the system. If we weren't pausing, then everything would be leased during this while we're trying to, see if we can get these reforms passed. They would be leased under the old system, and these leases are good for 10 years. So taxpayers would be locked into still getting a bad deal for that period of time. But the key is that you don't just pause for the sake of pausing, that you pause and actually reform the system so that it is fair to taxpayers.
Now, my understanding is the pause is in effect through the end of this month. Am I right?
Yes, and I suspect it'll be extended. The Department of Interior is supposed to have an interim report this month on sort of what they found when they examined the system and where it can be improved. And we're hoping that that'll point to some of the things that we're trying to get done legislatively. And then I would think probably you'd see another 6-month pause to try to help actually get those changes enacted and make those changes before you start up the leasing again. And there's no risk to jobs or to our dependence on oil and things like that, because these companies have stockpiled a heck of a lot of leases. I mean, over the past 4 years, we put up an area the size of Tennessee for a lease, and I think it's like 22 million acres across the West currently leased. And there's more than 10,000 existing permits that have not yet been developed. So you talk to the head of Devon Energy or Occidental Petroleum, they'll tell you we've got enough permits and leases to last us the entire Biden term and longer. So it won't affect our production or anything whatsoever. And the pause doesn't affect existing production or existing leases or anything like that. So we think the pause is a good thing. We think it's prudent because we want taxpayers to get a fair shake.
Now, here in Wyoming, I'm hearing a lot about it hurting our state revenues, however, because we do get a portion of the receipts from those leases. What would you say about that?
Well, I would say you should be the ones that are most in favor of reforming the system.
Okay.
Because if we're not getting a decent amount of or fair market revenue from the oil and gas activity that's going on, whatever we get, whatever the government gets is split with the state, right? So it's not just the taxpayers, the federal, from a federal perspective that's getting shortchanged. It's also the people of Wyoming. If we reform the system and we have less of that acreage going for $2 an acre, and if there is minimum bid, it goes for $10. If we try to get the system where it works more like it's supposed to, where companies bid against each other for the valuable parcels, then Wyoming stands to make a lot more money in the long run. What I just said before, this doesn't affect existing leases. It doesn't affect existing permits. It doesn't affect existing production. It only affects leases going forward. So I don't see how anyone can come to the conclusion with the stockpile that's out there that this little pause to try to reform the system is somehow going to cost jobs or affect, the revenue in Wyoming. It makes no sense. So the way you affect the revenue, the way you increase the revenue, is fixing the system. And if it takes 6 months or a year to fix the system, then it's time well spent.
Now, I think I picked up on a couple of the reforms you'd like. So you mentioned a couple of the bills in Congress. You mentioned you'd like to see minimum bids. I believe you also at least implied we need to get rid of the anonymous leasing. Is that correct?
Yes, I don't see what's the point in keeping that anonymous. It just causes people to play with the system. I mean, here's there is a perfume entrepreneur that's from what used to be Burma. I can never pronounce it. Myanmar.
Myanmar, yeah.
Yeah, and she has bought up 70,000 acres across the West. Has no experience in oil and gas, but just likes the ideal of owning the leases, and that maybe someday the whim will strike her and she will get into oil and gas. And she's a poet, by the way. There's a Canadian company that bought leases at minimum bid in Arizona. Arizona doesn't really have much oil and gas, nor Nevada. But they did it under this oil and gas leasing system because they could get it so cheap. But their real intent is not to produce oil and gas. Their real intent is to look for copper.
Oh, really?
So a Canadian company looking for copper, trying to use the oil and gas leasing system. More than 2 million acres have been put up for lease in Nevada. And Nevada is a hard rock state. You can drill all you want to in Nevada. You're not going to find oil. So why on earth would you put 2 million acres in Nevada up for lease and let people, basically control that land and keep it from being managed for other purposes for a decade? It makes no sense.
So how can we address that? What can we do to fix that?
Well, there's legislation also that would basically prevent the BLM from bidding out lands that are geologically deemed as low potential. In other words, every indication is they're just not much there. It wouldn't be economic to produce. So why lease those lands? If you can just stop from leasing those and you can raise the minimum bid amount, then what you're going to get is the industry focused really on the stuff that's the most promising, which will be a boon for taxpayers and for the state of Wyoming.
Okay, I'm speaking with Dave Jenkins, the president of Conservatives for Responsible Stewardship. We're talking about oil and gas leasing. And again, I'll repeat, if somebody else has another view and wants to come on my program in the future, I'd be more than happy to schedule a segment. Mr. Jenkins, here in the information I was given prior to our interview, it refers to misinformation by the oil industry regarding leases. What's some of the misinformation?
Well, you actually mentioned it just a little while ago that this pause is somehow going to cost jobs or cost states revenue or cause us to have to import more oil. That's just simply not true. They're just making it up because all you got to do is look at the numbers, the number of existing permits that have not been developed, the amount of acreage that's under lease, 22 million acres that's not been developed, the fact that existing production is not affected, that existing leases are not affected, and that the folks in the oil industry that actually does this have been saying, oh, we got plenty of stuff stockpiled, so we can go quite a while without more leases coming online. So I don't see, if you've got that situation and you look at the facts, what line of logic do you get where it actually has those impacts? It doesn't. It's just trying to scare people into saying, oh, this is a bad thing. But if taxpayers have been getting fleeced for a long time on this, and we've figured out that, hey, there's a way to fix this that makes it fair for taxpayers, it's prudent to take that pause and to try to fix it. The other thing people need to really keep in mind is that, we have built up a mountain of debt in this country over the past 4 years because of the pandemic, obviously more of the pandemic stuff this year, and even before that, obviously, with all the stuff we did to try to stimulate the economy back in 2008, 2012, all those time frames. So we got this huge amount of debt. And if we're not getting a fair return on the commodities that we make available for profit for companies, if we're not getting a fair shake there and they're able to rig the system so that they don't pay much and it doesn't come back to the Treasury, then digging out of that huge mountain of debt is going to fall more and more on the shoulders of individual taxpayers. Why would anybody want that?
Now, Mr. Jenkins, based on some of your comments here a few moments ago, I would infer, too, that you're saying that the oil and gas lease moratorium really doesn't have anything to do with the high price of gas these days or the increasing price of gas. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, it has absolutely zero to do with that because, like I said, all this stuff is future, way future. I mean, beyond the years of stockpiled stuff that the industry already has at its fingertips. This is well beyond that. And what we're dealing with in terms of gas prices right now is just an adjustment period because, with the pandemic subsiding and people getting vaccinated, economic activity is picking up as we hope it will and continue to do so. But it's picking up at a pace that's like really fast. And so when you've got a whole system that's geared towards supplying a certain amount of fuel, it's going to take a little bit for that to get caught up when demand spikes like it just has. So we'll see these higher gas prices probably through much of the summer because everybody's been cooped up for a year. They're like, get me out of here. I'm going to go somewhere. And so it takes fuel to do that, right? But this is not a long-term thing. And the thing that people in states like yours need to really, really think about hard is that there's a trend going on in transportation fuels that is, really going to disadvantage oil and gas. The electrification of the transportation sector. Every semi-truck manufacturer in the world is rolling out 100% electric semi-trucks. FedEx has ordered hundreds and hundreds, or thousands actually, of fully electric delivery vans, as has UPS, Anheuser-Busch, Walmart. They've all ordered fully electric semis. General Motors has said all of its cars are going to be electric by 2032 or something like that. So with all that happening, we're going to start seeing a demand issue with respect to oil and gas. The demand is going to go down, and therefore that's going to affect prices. And the problem is in this country, it cost us quite a bit to pull that oil out of the ground, especially across the West where you're doing, tapping into the oil shale and stuff. So you need 40, 45, 50, 55, depending on the well and the infrastructure and all that stuff, dollars a barrel to just break even or make a profit. The head of Royal Dutch Shell said that he believes that we're going to be in a time where the price of oil would be, as in his words, lower forever. So he's talking about sub $40 a barrel oil forever. And if that's the future, because of the way the transportation grid's going, then that is going to put a lot of companies out of business across the West because they can't simply make a profit at $35 a barrel oil or $30 a barrel oil or $25 a barrel oil. So for the state of Wyoming, if I was in charge, which I'm not, I would really be thinking about diversifying the state's revenue stream because you don't want to be so heavily dependent on oil and gas at a time when the energy market is in such a period of transition.
Now, I've actually spoken to a state economist on this subject numerous times, and he's told me that at any price under $60 a barrel here in Wyoming, it's really not cost effective for the companies to go after it. You're saying it's going to be maybe $35 a barrel. Does that mean basically our long-term future for the oil industry in Wyoming is pretty bleak?
Well, yes, that's what I would say. And that's why, you shouldn't be focused on this pause. I mean, the pause is if we can get more revenue from the oil that's being produced in the short term, that would be a great thing, and you take advantage of that. But over the long term, you need to be looking further out and say, okay, in 2030, what's the likely price of oil going to be? And if it's below that threshold, whether it's $60 a barrel or $50 a barrel, you look up in places like Alaska, like the Arctic Refuge, the price of oil needs to be $85 a barrel just to break even. It varies from place to place. But when you start looking at that and you look at where the price trend is going, then you've got to get in sync with the market. You've got to say, okay, the market's going this direction. We need to take our cues from the market, and we need to diversify so that we're not stuck in a situation where the market is working against us.
How about natural gas? You mentioned electric cars. A lot of electricity plants these days are powered by natural gas. Is the long-term outlook for natural gas a little more favorable?
Actually, it's kind of in the same boat.
Okay.
Because if you look at our electric grid, our coal plants and our natural gas plants, they were all built, most of them were built quite a while back, especially the coal plants. I mean, I think the last one was built in 1990, okay? And the natural gas plants are getting old too. And these plants have a shelf life, an operating life. And it's usually about 30 to 40 years, okay? And as they get older, they require more maintenance, and it costs more to operate them. And so the trend we're seeing is that with both coal and gas, but especially coal, but gas is sort of following a little bit behind that in the same direction, is that as these plants age, the cost effectiveness of their ability when they produce electricity, they get a bit of a disadvantage vis-a-vis other sources of energy. For example, in Arizona, there's a coal plant. It produces electricity for around $80 a megawatt hour.
Mm-hmm.
The new solar and storage facilities that are going online across the West, some of them are selling electricity on a 20-year contract for $14 a megawatt hour. So if you're an electric customer, or you're in your utility that cares about what your electric customers are paying, then you look at that landscape and you say, okay, coal and gas, plants are getting older, it's getting more expensive to operate them, and the price of natural gas is projected to double by 2030. Anyway, that's another aspect of it. You see them going in that trend where the cost of electricity produced by those fuels is going up, while the cost of electricity with solar and with storage now, you've got the reliability issue better handled, and wind is sort of in a similar price range. Low and going down, it's really hard for a utility now to say, okay, the smart bet is for me to build another gas plant. They're not. All their new capacity is coming in wind and solar.
Okay, I'm speaking with Dave Jenkins, president of Conservatives for Responsible Stewardship. We're talking about oil and gas leases. We've been discussing the Biden administration pause and some changes that Mr. Jenkins and his organization would like to see in the leases. We're down to about 2 minutes left. Is there anything that you haven't talked about you'd like our audience to know, or anything you'd like to especially emphasize?
Well, I just really think that market thing is very important. As conservatives, we've always said, follow the market, right? And we sometimes get stuck on oil and gas or coal or fossil fuels. But the thing to remember is there's no red or blue or right or left energy. Energy's energy, okay? And we just eat, it varies. What makes sense varies from state to state. It varies from, over time. And we just have to look at it, all of it as just energy, and think about where the market's going and what's best for our future. I just really would be concerned that a state like Wyoming, if you get where the governor or other people are just locked in on, we've got to be pro fossil fuels and subsidize them, prop them up no matter what, then, as the market changes, you're eventually going to be in a real pickle.
Okay, I'd like to thank my guest on this segment. I've been speaking with Dave Jenkins, the president of Conservatives for Responsible Stewardship. Mr. Jenkins, we appreciate your time. AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne's number one news talk radio station. Coming up the other side of the news and information break just ahead, we'll be speaking with Mike Heath of the Master Gardener Program. I believe Mike is going to be talking garlic today, growing garlic scapes. I'm not sure what a garlic scape is exactly, but that's something we can ask Mike, and that's coming up here just the other side of the news and information break. And, of course, we will be taking calls, as we typically do with the Master Gardener segment. So that's coming up here in about 3 minutes from right now, and we will be taking calls at 632-3323 if you have any questions or comments. Thanks for joining us. Nice afternoon out. Beautiful day for the middle of July. I don't do 95 too well. This is the kind of weather I sort of enjoy. So get out and enjoy the day if you have the chance. A little bit cooler today. I personally like that. Of course, all of the Cheyenne Frontier Days regalias up in downtown Cheyenne. It feels like July in Cheyenne for sure, after what was a pretty weird year last year with just about everything on hold. AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne News Talk radio station. We'll be speaking with Mike Heath with the Master Gardener Program just ahead right here.
Your day weather forecast is brought to you by Bob Ruard Motors, an honest, upfront deal. All roads lead to BobRuardMotors.com. Your Saturday forecast will feature mostly sunny skies, temps cool and comfortable into the upper 70s and low 80s. Northerly winds will be breezy at 15 to 25. For tonight, clear skies, lows in the low to mid 50s. Your Sunday outlook, keeping it sunny with highs in the lower to mid 80s. Back to the upper 80s, low 90s, sunny and dry for Monday. Lows in the low to mid 50s. 5-day weather meteorologist Don Watzel.
Hannah complained of a headache. It was a rhabdomyosarcoma. Within a few days, Hannah was in treatment because we were told the tumor was very aggressive. And it very quickly became clear that St. Jude was the ultimate place to be. So we've essentially put our lives in South Africa on hold. Incredibly blessed to be here. St. Jude is an asset to the world. The research that is developed here is offered freely to the rest of the medical world. The entire way that the place operates is just to give and to care. I think it's the kind of place that not only stands as a beacon for pediatric cancer, but I think it could teach the world a couple of lessons about how to treat people. And I think if those lessons could be learned, even in their most basic form, this world could be a better place.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
The thought of my sons growing up without me inspired me to quit smoking.
I talked to my doctors, and then I threw away all my cigarettes, ashtrays, and lighters.
I started exercising instead of smoking.
Getting support from friends online kept me on track.
Staying away from alcohol when I was first quitting was key.
Instead of smoking after I ate, I'd get up and take a walk.
I missed having a cigarette in my hand, so I'd hold a pen or a straw, anything.
Until I knew I wouldn't give in to temptation, I spent more time with my friends who didn't smoke.
I went to places that were smoke-free.
I didn't stay quit the very first time I tried.
I kept on trying, and I learned something each time.
Do whatever it takes.
No matter how many times it takes.
I quit.
I quit.
I quit.
We did it, so can you.
You can quit. For free help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne's number one news talk radio station. On the phone, I have Mike Heath with the Master Gardener Program. Good afternoon, Mike.
Doug, how you doing today?
Pretty well. How about yourself?
Oh, I am magnificent. I'm sitting in here with the hydroponics, looking at them and relaxing. And, there's nothing more relaxing than just being around plants.
And I understand you're going to talk garlic today. Is that right?
Oh, garlic scapes.
What are garlic scapes?
Yeah, see, that's what I was going to ask you. Have you ever heard of them before?
Nope, I have not.
Well, then you are probably right along with 99.999% of the rest of the world. Garlic scapes are probably one of the only delicacies actually grown here in Wyoming. And even that is very, very little and small amount. It's a part of the garlic plant that people don't think about at all. And let's start off, what garlic is. It's a member of what's called the allium family.
Okay.
Which includes chives, onions. There's a lot of flowers with these big, round, beautiful flower heads on that are probably 4 to 6 inches across and smell like onions. So everybody has seen them, I'm sure, even though they didn't know what they were. Now, garlic is part of that family, and they all have the same kind of flower head, and it's a stalk that comes out of the center of the bulb, and it shoots up out of the plant itself. Now, a garlic plant is about 2 to 3 feet tall. Now, a lot of folks won't realize that just seeing the size of the bulb, but it's actually a fairly large plant, and this flower head will start shooting up about the middle of June. And as it comes up, it just forms a curlicue, and it goes around once, maybe twice, in a little pigtail-looking shape. And it has a little pear-shaped ball up toward the end of it.
Okay.
Now, that pear-shaped ball is actually the flower. And if you let it go, that flower will open, and you'll have that pretty showy flower. But that also forms seeds. And if you let that thing form, it's going to take all the energy away from the bulb, and the bulb will actually start to shrink.
Okay.
So for any garlic farmer, it is a bad thing to let that flower head form. So they've got to come off. The neat thing about it is these things are edible, and they are absolutely delicious. And that's the garlic scape.
Now, that's not the part of the plant we normally think of. Does it taste like a garlic bulb, or does it taste different?
It does, but it's very delicate. Whereas your garlic has a stronger flavor, and you've got to get away from the garlic you buy in the grocery store. So I've got to digress for a minute and explain that. That is a California white garlic.
Okay.
And it is exceptionally mild and weak flavored because although people like garlic, they like it at varying strengths.
Right.
And there are lots of different varieties of garlic out there. Some are extremely hot. Some are mild, like the California white, and some are in between. And the Gansky, which is going to be available here in a couple of weeks, has a initial pop of a real hot flavor, and lasts for maybe a second or so, and then it levels off to a real mild, nutty flavor.
So, Mike, a quick question here, and I realize you're not, a gourmet chef or anything, but would you use this garlic in the same way that you would store-bought garlic, say, in chili and dishes you cook at home?
Okay, we're going to get into that.
Okay.
Because although I am not a gourmet chef, like you say, I have been doing a lot of experimenting with this stuff this year.
Okay, very good. I personally like cooking with garlic, and it's very healthy stuff.
I love to cook. I wish I had more time to do it.
Right.
But my wife's been helping me out with some recipes and such, and we have learned that these things, and you don't use them like normal garlic.
Okay.
To use the scape itself, think of green onions to start with.
Okay.
Any way that you would use green onions, you can use a garlic scape. But so much more. We have made a pesto with this that is, and if anybody's listening, I'm going to give you the recipe real quick here.
Okay.
A half cup of finely chopped garlic scapes, half cup of olive oil, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and 3 cups grated Parmesan cheese. And you mix all that together in a food processor to get the consistency you want. You may have to add a little bit more olive oil, depends on the moisture content of the cheese.
Mm-hmm.
It is the basis of so many, many, many different dishes. I took a cracker spread of that to a potluck here last week,
Mm-hmm.
and people went nuts over it. It has a very delicate garlic flavor. It's not strong and overpowering, and it's something you just can't put down. Even my 20-month-old granddaughter loves this stuff, and you wouldn't think a kid that age would like garlic, and she just eats it up. But that's just one recipe, but like I say, it's a basis, and you can make it up and freeze it, which is a nice thing about it. I did some dehydration on some, and Linda put it in hamburgers last night. Absolutely magnificent. We have used it on stuffed grilled chicken as part of the stuffing, and it just imparts that garlic flavor throughout the meat. But there again, it's not that strong garlic. It's a very delicate, mild taste. I have used it extensively on eggs, and it's great there. I just mix it in with some onion, I saute it, put it over eggs. It's wonderful. So any way that you can think to use green onions, you can use these, and then there's just so many more applications. Soups, ground up and put on salads, stews, as part of a mix in other foods, and we're just scratching the surface on the uses for these things this year. Because in the past, I've just thrown them away.
Mm-hmm.
I've grown garlic for years, and I knew you had to pull them off and get rid of them. I never thought to cook them.
So why isn't this more known? Is it kind of a well-kept secret, or what?
Well, see, they're only available for about 7 days a year.
Ah.
At least the fresh is only available for about that length of time, because the garlic comes up, and right before it is ready to harvest is when the scapes come on, and you've got to get them off right away. So, and I've got some that have been in the refrigerator for 2 weeks. I'm testing how long they last. They're still doing good.
Mm-hmm.
But they're really only available for that very short period. And there's not enough time to get them into the stores. So if you don't know someone that's growing garlic, or if you're not growing it yourself, you probably don't know about it. And probably will never have a chance to taste this wonderful dish. And I just can't express how good this stuff is.
Now, I would assume you can't buy that in the store, am I right?
Well, I am going to try to change that.
Okay, so you can try and market this then.
Well, it'll have to be dehydrated, though, because on the fresh, they just don't, they're not here long enough.
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely seasonal. So you have to know someone who's growing garlic to be able to get the fresh scapes.
Okay.
And I gave a whole bunch of them away this year, and people are just going nuts over them. But dehydrated, I am hoping to get into stores probably next year, and we'll see how that works out. Like I said, it wasn't something I had planned, but I got to do something with them.
It's too bad the farmer's market in Cheyenne is later. You could bring those out to the farmer's market. I'd buy some.
Well, there wouldn't be enough probably to grow around. I only grow about 3,000 garlic plants a year myself.
Okay.
And there wouldn't be enough to actually pay for the farmer's market.
I see. Okay.
But if somebody wanted something, they could always contact me.
Okay.
And I can deal with that. I've got it's not a whole bunch, but some. And I'd like to see other people get into it and start growing garlic here. We have a wonderful environment for it, and this is a real good segue into garlic. We have a great environment for garlic here in Wyoming. The soil is good for it. Garlic is a very heavy feeder, so you got to fertilize it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it likes that relatively dry, sandy loam soil. And the winters are great. You plant it towards the end of October, and it just overwinters and it comes up in the spring, kind of like winter wheat does.
Mike, I do need to take a commercial break here. We'll
Informative and courteous is our goal for every sale. Stop in today or visit KiaofCheyenne.com.
It took me a long time to be able to say Chandler has cancer, because that is such a scary word. St. Jude takes care of absolutely everything. And knowing that we don't have to pay for all of the medical expenses, that's huge.
St. Jude allowed me to focus on being a mom to Bryce. And sometimes I'm just in awe of the impact St. Jude has, not only on this community, but the world.
St. Jude is uniquely positioned to advance the cures of pediatric cancer, I think better than any other institution in the world. The contributions make a big difference.
Donors are important to us because you get the feeling that you have a team behind you. We have the resources and we have the focus. And so if St. Jude doesn't do it, who will?
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Hi, Chuck. Elmo wants to know, what is the census?
The census is a special time when we count every single person in the country.
Do kids and babies count too?
Of course. Counting everyone in your home helps support your neighborhood by funding schools, hospitals, and more. So complete the census by calling, going online, or returning your form by mail. It's totally private.
Visit 2020census.gov and
make your family count!
Brought to you by Carnegie Corporation of New York and the Ad Council.
Hi everybody, I'm Jack Hanna. Since I was a boy, I've been fascinated with animals, especially their tireless work ethic. This work ethic is shared by our best friends, canines who perform life-saving work every day. So please join me and American Humane in supporting our heroic working dogs. Go to AmericanHumane.org to learn more.
AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne's #1 news talk radio station. I have Mike Heath from the Master Gardener program on the phone. Mike, it does look like we have a caller. Caller, good afternoon. You're on the air.
Oh, howdy. Yeah, regarding the drought, you know, the programs that the federal government offers to let your land go fallow, I'm wondering, is there a time limit? Like, do you have to give advance notice of putting in, to get those set-asides? Or can you, if it's obvious that we're in it right now, can you put in for the set-aside like now, or do you have to give advance notice?
Okay, my understanding of it is, and that's actually more of a commercial ranch or commercial farmer application. You have to put in an application for it. You accept it into the program, and then you have to leave it. I think the time period is 10 years, and you have to agree to plant it back into drought-resistant type grasses and forages during that period.
So if there was like an emergency year like this one, I'm just wondering, you would, right now, in Congress they've got the infrastructure bill. And the topsoil of America, to me, would be the infrastructure, or part of it. And, they knew back in the Dust Bowl days, what was that, 80 years ago, that you don't want to lose your topsoil. And so I'm just wondering who in their dumbass mind would come up with an idea that you got to put in advance before a drought, because if people are turning over their soil, just as the drought's hitting, that's going to make it more likely that soil's going to be blown away. And
yes and no, because there's actually more to that answer than what it sounds like.
Mike, would this be a question for the University of Wyoming Cooperative Extension Service, perhaps?
Well, yeah, it would be, but at the same time, part of it I can answer.
Okay.
The farmers and ranchers of this country are probably some of the best stewards of the land there are. And out of the Dust Bowl era, we developed a lot of farming practices such as strip farming and cover crops that take care of the issues that you're describing. And the federal program, the Conservation Reserve Program, which is the CRP, which is what you're actually discussing, is not for that issue. It's actually to set aside land out of production so that it's there and available in the future if it's needed. There have been a few years, drought years, in my memory, that some of that land has actually been released early from its contract so that it can be used, primarily because hay was just in such demand at that point in time. We couldn't grow enough of it because of a drought.
Mm-hmm.
But the CRP is actually a contract with the government just to take land out of production. Has nothing to do with topsoil or trying to preserve someone through a drought that just got here. And of course, this one was predicted years ago.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Don Day's been talking about this for at least 3 years.
Sure.
And I've been discussing it in the newspaper articles I write. In fact, one just came out this week concerning this drought. But how to take care of your property beforehand. And unfortunately, the paper I write in is very limited in its distribution. But this is something you plan for all the time, and you just don't turn your ground over unless you're going to have something planted on it, something drought resistant, if there's a drought coming. And that's just proper stewardship for the property.
Well, that makes sense. Just to wrap up, I know you're coming on the top of the hour. Hemp was a big, before 1927, before it was outlawed, hemp was 1/3 of the American economy, 1/3 of it. And so when they outlawed hemp, they did it by tricking the farmers into believing that there was something called marijuana when it was really just hemp. And so they outlawed 1/3 of the American economy. And
well, you're right and you're wrong, both. Marijuana is hemp. Hemp is not necessarily marijuana. It's two different plants.
Well, I understand there's the smoking stuff and there's
hemp can form THC if it's not treated with kid gloves. In fact, there was a case in Nebraska, I think it was just this last year, a farmer lost his entire crop because he didn't maintain it properly, and within 2 weeks, it went way over the THC level that was allowed.
Well, what I'm leading up to is if you know about it as a weed, as ground cover. But I'm old enough to remember when Richard Nixon was in, and he was trying to force hemp outlawing hemp in Missouri, and the Department of Conservation out there was saying no, it's too important as duck food, as shelter for game birds. And when you start looking at a drought, that this plant, though it's hard to eradicate, creates a huge amount of shade. It prevents topsoil from being lost. It provides, shelter, and it's great. What do you call it? Cattle food. It's silage, and so the idea that they did outlaw it, by tricking us with the name, whether it was hemp or whether it was, cannabis, but it was still outlawing 1/3 of the economy, and it set it up so that so much of, you look at western Kansas, eastern Colorado, Wyoming, many of the western states used to be covered in it. I was recently reading a book about Utah and the cattle production out there, and they had massive cattle production, but they ate it all down to the nub. And so now it's all pretty much desert back there. And so we've got to get some of those native plants back in, and it would seem to me that planting hemp is going to be a part of that. That we got to provide shade for the ground in order for the other plants to get back established. And so I just wondered if you got any take on that.
Well, you're talking a political issue now, and there again, hemp is permitted in Wyoming, but there again, not marijuana.
I think we're starting to get a little far afield here, also from the discussion.
Well, to me, it's not political. It's pure agricultural. It's pure, ecological. And the idea that apparently William Randolph Hearst, he helped cause the Spanish-American War, and he was given forests as a reward. And he wanted he basically wanted to turn paper production into trees instead of hemp. And so by outlawing hemp...
And ask you a question, though.
Yeah.
How does this relate to garlic?
I'm not sure about garlic.
I think we're.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I think we're getting a little far afield from the topic.
All right. Well, take care.
Thanks, caller.
Hey, thanks. Maybe later.
Yeah, and we've done programs on hemp and may do that again, and that's really a whole subject unto itself.
We have, and Catherine, I think, has done at least 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if anyone else has, but she's done at least 2 on hemp. And there's a lot of issues around hemp, and the history of all this other stuff really doesn't play into it. But there's production issues and political issues around that whole product. So, and I'm really not prepared to go into either one of those. I'm not that familiar with him.
But back to the subject, garlic. You were talking garlic. kind of got off topic there, but.
Well, what I'd like to see in a little bit of time remaining is, people, I would like to see planting more garlic. It's a wonderful plant. It's got a lot of health benefits that we can get into at another time because it's just not enough time left. But I'd like to see this come on as more of a product, more of a crop here in Wyoming, and not just the standard varieties that you think of, like the California whites, but the gourmet varieties. Because the California white will not grow here. It's got to have that warm, moist climate, the real loose, loamy soil of the South. Southern coast, actually, which is why it's called California white, because that's where it grows.
Around Gilroy.
Well, there's a lot of areas down there, but it's really what you see in all the grocery stores nationwide.
It's what people think garlic is because that's what they see in the stores.
Yeah, exactly. And if you see something different, well, that's not really garlic. Well, yeah, it is. It is better garlic than what you buy in the store. And they do look different. The Dugansky is purple with white stripes and just a real pretty bulb. And there's others, silvers and reds, all kinds of different garlics and a lot of different flavors. But I would love to see more people planting garlic for the gourmet garlics, and see that as more of a crop here because we have the perfect soil.
Why hasn't that happened, Mike?
Well, we're wheat country.
Right.
And this is my opinion. And why think of something else if wheat is doing so well for you?
True.
In fact, let's go back to the hemp issue for a minute. That was real big here a couple of years ago, but what have you heard in the last year about hemp?
I haven't heard much.
Yeah, me either.
My understanding is, and I don't want to go down the side road too far, but my understanding is it's a challenging crop.
It's a very challenging crop. And that's one of the issues that Catherine was bringing up. But there was a fad there for a short period of time, and it's going to die out. But garlic is something that you can put on the land as it is. It doesn't cost you $10 a seed. In fact, I put 3,000 plants in last year, and I think it cost me about $500.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's not bad.
I'm going to ask a stupid question here that I probably should know the answer to, but I don't. Do you grow garlic from a seed, or how do you grow it?
Well, you can grow it from a seed, but it's very difficult to do that.
Okay.
Usually you grow it from a clove out of the bulb.
Ah, okay. Well, that makes sense.
Now, I'm going to give my phone number out here if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead.
And if anyone wants to know more about garlic or information on how to grow it, give me a call. And it's a cell phone, so you can text as well. That's 307-640-2445. That's 307-640-2445. And I would love to talk to folks about this plant. And if you want to get started with it, I can give you a list of folks to go to get real good cloves to plant and how to get started on it. It's something that I would love to see going here in particularly Laramie County because we're just perfect for it.
Well, and we need to diversify our economy, and this might be an opportunity to do
and
that.
This is something that can also be grown by just homeowners in your flower beds and use it at home if nothing else.
Does the homegrown taste a lot better than the store-bought?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The nice thing about growing it yourself, and it's any vegetable, it's not just garlic, you control what goes into that plant. If you're buying commercial garlic, there's a lot of chemicals that are going on it.
Right.
And not necessarily pesticides, but our land is being stripped of nutrients. And we're trying to compensate for that by putting chemical nutrients, synthetic nutrients, back into the soil.
Mike, I hate to cut you off. We're about out of time. I do appreciate your time this afternoon.
You betcha.
Have a great
Doug.
Have a great weekend, Mike. Appreciate it.
You too. Bye.
AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne Orchard Valley. We're coming up on the top of the hour. Thank you for joining us once again on the Weekend in Wyoming program. We'll do it again next week from 11 to 1 right here on AM 650 KGAB, Cheyenne Orchard Valley. It's 1 o'clock.
It's day 2 for a big conservative event in Texas. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News. The Conservative Political Action Conference is in its second day in Dallas. Fox's Casey Stegall is there.
About 4,000 people are expected to trickle through here over the next couple of days. The theme here is America Uncanceled, and the whole agenda is packed with events, workshops, speakers, and booths that sort of cater around that message. The headliner comes tomorrow to close CPAC out. Former President Donald Trump will be here.
Former President Trump will speak about 4:35 Eastern tomorrow afternoon. Finance ministers from the G20 meeting in Venice, Italy, have endorsed plans for a global minimum corporate tax of 15%. Companies would be taxed by their home countries if their profits overseas go untaxed. It's aimed at deterring companies from moving profits to low tax rate countries. Billionaire Richard Branson set to travel to space tomorrow aboard his Virgin Galactic space plane from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Fox's Jeff Paul.
Branson will be joined by 3 employees and 2 other pilots. They'll be aboard the VSS Unity, a sort of passenger rocket plane. The twin fuselage carrier jet will carry Unity to 50,000 feet, then be released and blast off through the Earth's atmosphere. It should last about 90 minutes from start to finish.
Branson will beat Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos, who plans a launch into space later this month. A zoo in Omaha says roughly 200 people were possibly exposed to a rabid bat. Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium's paying for rabies shots for 186 people who recently camped overnight at the aquarium. No one was bitten, but one bat tested positive for rabies. America is listening to Fox News.
Jason in the House, the Jason Chaffetz podcast. There is always someone doing something stupid somewhere. Dive deeper than the headlines and the party lines as I take on American life, politics, and entertainment. Join me, Jason Chaffetz, every Wednesday as I shed light on the news and make some predictions along the way. You never know who will drop in. Subscribe now on foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
The Taliban is advancing again in Afghanistan. Fox's Greg Palcott reports.
The Taliban offensive continues here amid some reports of a bit of a fight back. Militants continue to make gains across the country. Yesterday, they claim they've got 85% of the country, but in fact, experts say it's only like a third, but still, that's a lot. And the territory continues to mount. Overall, the Afghanistan military has been rolling over, but there are unconfirmed reports today of a bit of a clawback. Clashes in the south, airstrikes in the west, the government claiming Taliban deaths.
The search for 9 Cubans missing from a boat that capsized off Florida's coast has been suspended. The boat was reported capsized on Tuesday. The Coast Guard rescued 13 people about 26 miles southeast of Key West. Arizona will no longer accept extra unemployment benefits from the federal government. Instead, though, the governor wants to use that money as an incentive to get people back to work. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal reports.
In May, Arizona's Governor Doug Ducey announced they would be joining the growing list of states that are rejecting the extra $300 a week in federal unemployment benefits starting July 10th, saying businesses are having trouble finding willing workers.
The increase and extension of the supplemental federal unemployment benefits, once well-intended, is now having the wrong impact.
But he said they'd be setting aside $300 million to help people in other ways, like giving folks a $2,000 bonus to accept full-time work, as well as cash for 3 months of childcare for those currently unemployed who find work. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Nightclubs in Paris are reopening 16 months since they were forced to close because of the pandemic. The reopening of Paris's dance clubs is the final step in France's lifting of pandemic restrictions. I'm Joe Giro, Fox News.